Good afternoon, everybody. This is Rudy Reyes. I'm here at Diamonds Casino with my cohort and the other end of the coast, Alan Alford. Alan, how are you? This is episode 1 for everyone, so let's kind of bring in the noise a little bit. We're going to bring this into the new year, so I'm excited. Are you excited?
I'm tremendously excited. Definitely excited to talk about sports on Let's Talk Sports with you, and we're gonna have a fantastic episode 1 and beyond. And there you go.
Yep, and that is that. We're going to start off this morning real simple, real easy. Let's get into the National Football League. Everybody wants to talk about it. Everybody wants to do something about it. But there are teams that, there's a huge games for everybody this upcoming weekend. But let's talk about what playoff positioning actually looks like. We look at the first place, at least in the AFC North. Steelers win a huge game this past weekend to increase our record to 8-6. And first in the AFC North, it's a slim margin, I know, and the Baltimore Ravens are on the bubble right now. But how they won it, I think it was more important in how they won it and the game plan at Acrisure Stadium. They were really looking forward to getting into nearly sub-zero temperatures, Alan. You wouldn't catch me there if you depended on it. Now, training camp may be a little bit of a different story, or maybe during the regular season, but we're talking postseason play. And only you're going to find this type of game in the AFC. They remain 2 games over Baltimore, who stand at a record of 7-7. And of course, I don't remiss this fair weather team in the Miami Dolphins, who, by the way, decided to bench a Tua Tagovailoa, who has had more of an up and down season. That lob to the end zone that was picked up by Asante Samuels deep into the red zone didn't exactly look very good for Tua. And I think one of the reasons why Mike McDaniels decided to bench him in lieu of their backup quarterback. When I look at Miami, and when you look at Miami, do you see them? Look, they need a lot of help to get into the playoffs. Where do you see them actually laying within the positioning of the playoffs, or are they even on the outside looking in and hoping that other teams are going to lose in order for them to get an opportunity to play? Do they have that opportunity?
I think they have the opportunity, but that window is definitely closing. They need a little bit of help. They got to end off the year strong. I actually agree with the benching of Tua Tagovailoa. I definitely think it's time. The thing about it, sometimes your team needs a spark. It may not be a permanent benching, but I definitely do think with the little bit of games you have left, you have to make your best run to go ahead and make the playoffs. And the Dolphins need to win out, but they also need some help.
They need a lot of help. I don't know what teams are going to be able to give them the kind of help that they're really looking for. And unfortunately for Miami and for Tua and Mike McDaniels collectively, not to mention their fans, that's a whole nother conversation. But when you look at Miami, this has been an ongoing battle. Now, Miami is going to play against the Bengals this weekend, who is also out of playoff contention for the 3rd straight year. I was listening this morning to an ESPN station, and they were talking about how their quarterback probably will fight his way out of it in Joe Burrow. I don't know that he's fighting his way out of it. I think you can look at the front office of the Bengals and think to yourself, man, are they going to do anything to help him? Okay, fine. So there's accountability for Joe Burrow. I get that. I understand it. But Joe Burrow himself, look, I want this guy. I need this guy. Well, they signed him to some lucrative contracts and, of course, not necessarily taking a hit on his own contract in order to keep those guys. But here they are, right? So 3rd straight year, Bengals have not found a way to get into postseason, which is a huge problem. Look at the front office. You look at coaching. You look at a game scheme, game plan, execution. Of course, the execution is not there. And you can look at a variety of spots. You can look at the offense, defense, special teams, things of that nature. But don't forget, the defense is near dead last in the NFL of being able to stop the run. I mean, teams run on them like a train track. So when you look at the Bengals, do they have a chance to win? I mean, these are very winnable games for the Bengals moving forward. But when you look back at who they're playing this weekend in Miami, who basically were shell-shocked by the Steelers at Acrisure, this is a meaningless game for both teams. But who do you think ends up getting the W?
That's a good question. I definitely do think they have to kind of make a push and win this game. The thing about it is, I think the Bengals are the team that I think will ultimately come out on top. The Bengals, I think want to finish off the year strong because of what you said. They haven't played well. They haven't made the playoffs. I think you want to end off strong with Burrow because Burrow has missed so much time. I think this will kind of give the team a little bit of mojo starting into next season, have something to positive to walk into. So I think the Bengals will pull out this win, though it won't be an easy win for them.
No, it won't be an easy win. Now, mind you, when you head into the regular season and you're fighting for position within any given NFL locker room and you think to yourself, man, I think I've done enough, I've done enough, I've done enough. The problem is that when you look at the Bengals and that defense, they haven't really done enough, to be perfectly honest with you. You mentioned Joe Burrow missing a lot of time. That hasn't helped them at all to build an economy, to help build those relationships on the field, in the locker room, being able to be a part of on-field, I don't know, games, if you will, and jokes, and be able to build camaraderie with his offensive line. So a lot of issues that you can probably talk about along with what the Bengals are facing in the offseason. Then you talk about draft. We're not talking about draft right now, but when you look at what they need to do for the upcoming NFL draft, which is, by the way, is in Pittsburgh, so it's going to be a very short drive from Cincinnati to Pittsburgh for the 2026 NFL draft. Let's move forward here. To kind of wrap this up, I think the Steelers will end up getting into the playoffs. Whether or not their offensive line is going to play well enough, if they can get guys like Washington involved early and often. He's a big guy, over 300 plus pounds. He's like this massive tight end, almost like an offensive guard. This guy's just an absolute beast. He had like the biggest angry run I think I've seen all season long. It's fabulous. I love to watch that guy play. But then you have TJ Watt, who could be questionable, went in for surgery on his lung, which is certainly nothing to shake a stick at. Anybody knows that once you're on the table, anything can happen. But TJ Watt could possibly be a starter, or maybe come off the bench in a rotationary, just to have a lot of precaution association with his surgery. So Steelers get in postseason. It'll be determined on whether or not the offensive line, along with the weaponry that they have, and to be able to stop the run, that will move them deep into January. So we're going to find out what this Steeler team is made of on the road and at home, by the way. Speaking of home, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have found themselves back in the playoffs, and, well, they're playing 500 ball. And the only reason why they're there is because the Carolina Panthers fell apart, and they have way too much to lose right now. Look, they've had a great season. Bryce Young, pre-benching was last year. Post-benching looked much better. A lot of promises from him when you look at what he's done under center, completion ratio, interceptions to completion ratio, things of that nature. So you look at him and you think to yourself, man, this guy is on the threshold, on the preface of doing something really good for this Carolina Panthers organization moving forward. Now, they lost a game against the spoiler team in the Big Easy against the New Orleans Saints. And what's interesting about this is that when you look at the Saints and you look at Slock and you think, well, the guy's is kind of a slouch. He showed up in this game. I was really surprised. I was really amazed that he was able to he did were just, third, fourth year quarterback kind of stuff, scrambling out of the pocket, gaining first downs rather, and just being able to be that guy under center, kind of building the confidence factor within who he was. What did you see from Carolina in regards to how they fell apart, and what did you really want to see from New Orleans that you've seen against Carolina?
Yeah, what it is New Orleans, the New Orleans Saints are a team that you can't really sleep on. Their record is not great, but they're a team that you can't take for granted. I think the Bucs did take them for granted a bit a couple weeks back when they lost to them. And what Carolina needed to do to go ahead and keep pace with the Bucs, they had to win this game against a division opponent, the Saints. They did not. It was a really a beneficial win for the Bucs, but it really was a crushing loss for the Panthers because that loss really put you on the outside looking in to making the postseason. If the Bucs do what they're supposed to do, they should be the team to make it. But the Carolina needed to close that game out, and they just didn't do it against a very beatable team that you had a good chance of beating, but you had to play your game.
Absolutely right. And when you look at who New Orleans actually is at this point, you think to yourself, man, do they have a chance in the following years with Mickey Loomis, who knows somehow the guy just does it every single year, being able to tweak and turn over contracts and to rob Peter to pay Paul. I don't know if they have a Peter or Paul on their team, but if they did, that'd be a great segue into what next year is going to look like for them. But I think Slock showed enough of what he needed to do moving forward. Is he a quarterback of the future? That remains to be determined. But I do like the way I do like his quarterback play. I like his decision-making process. He looked gutsy and gritty, and I'm all in on Slock, to be perfectly honest with you. So as much as I'd like to give credit to Tampa Bay, the only reason why they're in and playing 500 ball and first in their division in the NFC South is because Carolina lost. So it's not as if they're knocking the socks off other teams and say, oh, Tampa Bay, number one in the NFL and the NFC. They are not there. They are not with the Chicago Bears, who, by the way, is just strikingly amazing in regards to what they've accomplished this year. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. But when it comes to playoff contention, I think the New Orleans Saints have a lot of glimmer in their eye moving forward in the Big Easy. And if there's a lot of things you need to correct, obviously, we don't have enough time in the show to go over all of that. But when you look at their body of work down the stretch in the latter part, 3 games left in the regular season, and it's a very long off season for them, certainly has a lot of things to be determined with the second-year head coach. So we're going to find out what the Saints look like moving forward. Speaking of moving forward, the Lions are kind of on again, off again. It's like a horrible romance. We don't know who's in first, what's on second, and he's on third. And we're not talking baseball, at least not yet. When you look at the Lions, who find themselves third place in the NFC North, they're kind of on the brink of disaster right about now in regards to, are they going to get there? Will they get there? Are they playing hard enough? What does it look like for them heading into postseason play? Or do they even get in? When I say brink, I mean in their division. So look, when you look at postseason victories for them, losing against 49ers last year in the playoffs, Lions are 8-6. They have about a 40% chance, give or take, making it into the playoffs. And of course, this team looks like your father's old Lions team of past in Detroit before they had the dome, because they played in the snow. And of course, if you've ever been to Detroit, that snow is brutal. So I look at the Lions, I think to myself, man, are there brown paper bags the Lions should be preparing? Should they be ironing them, ready to go? What does that look like for the Lions? And do the Lions miss postseason play, Alan?
The Lions definitely miss postseason play. They have a very, very electric team. They've lost a couple of games that they really should have won. That's how competitive the NFL is, that even as great as the Lions are and great as their talent, Jamar Gibbs and crew, if you don't win the games that really matter, those couple of games throughout the season, you put yourself on the outside looking in, and that's where they are, amazing as it should be. It is going to be very interesting to see if they make it to the playoffs, because it won't be the same if they don't make it to the playoffs. They need to make it. You want to see Dan Campbell in there, 4th and 1, 4th and 2, see if he's going to go for it. 9 times out of 10 he does. But I love what he does and brings to the table. It would be unfortunate if the Lions don't make it to the playoffs.
Yeah, very unfortunate. He wants to bite the kneecap, the kneecaps off of people's legs. Well, unfortunately, they're being fed to him left and right, especially at 8-6. So I don't know that the Lions are going to make it. If they do, it would be because other teams have lost within their division. I mean, and that's the bottom line. The Vikings have nothing to fight for. They're done. And they have a long off season ahead of them. What do we do with JJ McCarthy? But I think when you look at the Lions, I don't know. I'm on the fence for them. I don't know that I don't want them in, but the only reason why I would want them in is because of what Dan Campbell has done this season. They haven't been consistent in the secondary. They're running way too many yards per carry. They weren't. This is like polar opposite of what they look like early on in the season and the latter part of last season. Like I said, as they lost against 49ers in postseason play. So it's kind of a myth. I'm on the fence. I'm 50-50. And I don't have a coin to flip, in order to take me to the other side. So this is Rudy Reyes. We're in Diamonds Casino here in Reno, Nevada. This is episode 1 of Let's Talk Sports. Go to diamondscasinoreno.com. If you're in the area or if you're not in the area, we're going to be doing this show live on Fox Sports Radio January 17th. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be fabulous. I'm going to be live. I'll be doing some remotes also. Alan's along for the ride because wherever I go, he'll go. And with that, again, go to diamondscasinoreno.com and check us out. Don't be afraid. Come on down. If you're, like I said, you're in the area, come on down and get a player's card, and we'll give you $10 in free play. You can use my name as that reference, which is Rudy, of course, followed by Reyes, which is my last name. All right, so Parsons training camp, no longer the case. Kind of an issue. He was injured, unfortunately, and untimely this past weekend, along with two other superstars, one being Patrick Mahomes. We're not going to talk about Patrick Mahomes at the moment, but we will get to it momentarily. As we would understand it, Shoddy, as he is known around the league, or Schottenheimer, son of basically a Hall of Famer and Schottenheimer, found himself in a position as head coach for the Dallas Cowboys this season for his very first opportunity as a head coach. If he could only feel inspired enough to get this bubble Dallas Cowboy team, who, by the way, only has 10% of a chance, which I don't know. It kind of reminds me of that GIF saying, oh, so I have a chance. I don't know if they have a chance. I don't think their chances is good of me maybe falling into $1 million lottery, here at Diamonds Casino. And I say that because they're on the outside looking in right now with a very small window of opportunity. But with other teams, they may not have that opportunity because they're just playing much better football. Now, when you look at the 1% chance the Dallas Cowboys have, and I'll do credit where credit is due. Look, they managed to get in the wild card game against the Packers. They lost in January in 24. They beat the Buccaneers in the wild card game. Then lost the divisional against the 49ers in 2023. Then lost to the 49ers, seemed to be their Achilles heel in a wild card round in 2022. So despite this team making it into postseason play, they haven't made it to an NFC championship game. And hold your hats, Cowboy fans, it has not won since 1995. Alan, the question lingers. Do the Cowboys even have a 1% chance of getting into postseason? And if they do, what gets them in?
Definitely Dak, CeeDee Lamb. They gotta ball out, those guys, and win everything out. I think they have a chance. The Dallas Cowboys are one of those teams this year that have been hanging around. They've won games that you didn't expect them to win, even for the Cowboys. I think they have a shot. That's the thing. They have a huge fan base. They got to tap into that. The fans got to show up. They can't think about the losses in the past in the postseason or close to it. They got to focus on this season, end of the season strong. CeeDee Lamb, Dak Prescott, that combination is lethal. If they can do that, they have a chance.
Well, don't forget George Pickens, too. They're going to have to find a way to grit this out. When you say the fans have been showing up, it's the team that has not been showing up. They got burnt like toast in the last couple of games in the secondary. Now, with all due respect, the Dallas Cowboys themselves found the wins by beating teams like the Philadelphia Eagles, the reigning Super Bowl champions, who, by the way, are looking very Super Bowl-ish right now, or bullish for that matter. Kansas City Chiefs are now missing Patrick Mahomes with a torn ACL, out for the season. That's going to be a long offseason for the Chiefs moving forward. I just don't know that the Cowboys have enough to get them in. Fans, no fans, Pickens, Lamb, Prescott, they need to address the defense. They need to address, postseason, off-season rather, into the draft. And I think if they look into that, they need to beef up the secondary. They need to get one pass rusher to offset what they didn't acquire. Kenny Clark is good. Don't get me wrong. I love watching that guy play. He's a baller. But I'm looking for a pass rusher, like a guy who has a constant motor. And that's who Micah Parsons is, a constant motor. Sideline to sideline kind of guy. So I don't think the Cowboys get in at all whatsoever. I don't even think they have a chance. Again, I have a better chance of winning the lottery that I don't play. So unfortunately, I just don't see it happening, and that's as true as I could possibly give it to anybody out there. And thank you for tuning in. Like it, share it. Make sure you give Alan Alford a follow at Alan Alford on X. Follow me at Rude Dog Reyes. Go to Diamonds Casino Reno on X. And if you can't find it, just let me know, inbox me, or heck, send me a tweet. I'll be able to help you out and get you in the right direction. This team is really kind of a ghost of a team. And I say that not because they didn't win last year, they did. But there's a lot of lingering effects here you may not believe would have haunted the Super Bowl champions. But let's look at the Madden curse. Oh, Saquon Barkley not getting any yards per carry, not getting the touchdowns. What does this look like for him moving forward? Wear and tear, preseason, last season. There are a lot of problems in Philadelphia. And I'm not saying that you're going to go off, and I'm not suggesting throwing snowballs at Santa Claus or anything like that. But, I mean, come on. Philadelphia Eagles are feeling the hangover months after they won the Super Bowl into the regular season. As I stated earlier, losing to the Cowboys, losing to the Chargers, losing to the Bears. The Bears! Twice, not once, but twice. The record may indicate exactly who they are this season at 9-5. But when you look at one of the reasons why they're 9-5, well, because a lot of teams are preparing and were able to kind of pick up where others have left off. They try the tush push is, yeah, okay. But when you look at how teams are preparing for Saquon Barkley and that running attack, I mean, his numbers have been abominable this season versus last year. Yeah, I talked about wear and tear. Most running backs would have given up already. So you know what, just bench me and we'll call it a day with 3 games left in the regular season. But when you look at his efforts, I'm not saying he doesn't run hard. I'm not saying he's not a hard player. What I'm saying is that because teams are preparing for that type of run from him and that offensive line doing him justice, getting him through, he's just not doing it. I mean, it's underwhelming right now at 1,000 yards and maybe finish just under that, and could be a case where when you look at it, 3 yards per carry from Saquon, look, the guy's just worn out. I mean, let's just call it what it is. But, and I've said this during the regular season. I've said it before the regular season. This tush push should be banned. It's a very hollow, shelled play call. And that's just my opinion. Other people may agree. Other people may not agree. Eagles fans obviously aren't going to agree with that statement. But I think it's an unfair advantage to the offense. Now, with that being said, when you look at Saquon Barkley, is it wear and tear? Should he just hang it up with 3 games left? Or do you think that they're going to keep running him and maybe get him in the passing game and not just a runner from behind the line?
That's a great question, Rudy. Yeah, I think it's a lot of things going on with the Eagles. With Saquon Barkley, I do believe it's somewhat of the Madden curse, but I think the biggest thing with that is the fact that teams this season, during the offseason, prepared for Saquon Barkley. They were like, you know what? We'll lose to someone else, but we're not going to lose to Saquon Barkley. They've been loading up the box. Plus, the offensive line has not been giving him as many holes like they were. So that combination has not been favorable for Saquon Barkley. On top of that, the passing games. It seemed like the Eagles passed a lot more last year and the season before. They went to making Saquon Barkley their primary target in most games and not use their passing game to give Saquon Barkley some more opportunities. So I think it all falls from, it almost feels like Jalen Hurts is not confident in his arm like he was, and he's just not pulling the trigger, and Saquon is getting not as many holes, so that's becoming spinning in wheels. So hopefully they do play him some, but they pass the game, because I think you want to have some type of rhythm going into the postseason. They need to do that quickly because time's running out.
Time is definitely running out, and it's not on their side. It's not in their favor. They are very clear about this close to being basically ousted from the playoffs. We know what happened to Kansas City, as I mentioned earlier. Patrick Mahomes went out, and here comes Minshew, and that didn't work out too well. And this whole thing with Travis Kelce, and look, I met his parents just a few years ago in Arizona during the Super Bowl in the second meeting against Kansas City. And I thought to myself, man, Jason's nice. He's a great guy. I like Jason Kelce. You look at the parents, talk to the parents. They're great people. I don't know what happened to Travis. I mean, I don't know. Some people think he got dropped on his head. I don't know, but he's got some serious issues. I think it's more focused on the marriage to Swift, so he can become an official Swiftie. So does he change his name? Anyway, that's time for another show. Uh, let's look at the Indianapolis Colts, who were doing so well with Daniel Jones that he was injured, diagnosed with a torn ACL during the regular season against the Jaguars in Week 14. I wasn't a Daniel Jones guy when he played for New York, but then again, he played under Daboll. So Daboll, okay, decent head coach. Not the best, but certainly not the worst, but definitely in the conversation of being one of the worst head coaches in National Football League, in my opinion. New Yorkers may not like it, or I should say New Yorkers, but at the same token, it doesn't leave anything to be desired. So now they go into the bag of the bag of tricks, and they went to Father Time. I mean Uncle Phil or Philip Rivers, and ask him, "Would you be our savior and come and play as our quarterback for the remainder of the season to see if there's any type of jolt?" Now, mind you, he's played. And he's played with the Indianapolis Colts for some time. He played for one season, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. So he comes in, has an okay game, not the best game, but what do you expect from a guy who has his oldest son in the audience with his youngest son next to him, and he's a grandfather already? I'm just saying that they went out and a fractured fibula for Daniel Jones as well, and free agency. Okay, look, Daniel Jones. To be honest with you, the way that I see him and the way that I see this is that the Indianapolis Colts do not have a solid backup quarterback in their system. They just don't. So could Daniel Jones' stock rise? Could he get a contract extension? That remains to be seen. And I say that because now he's headed into maybe, postseason for him because he's done for the season. But could this be a Daniel Jones revival in Indianapolis? Do the Colts extend the olive branch to Daniel Jones and say, you know what, you're going to be our guy moving forward? And if so, do they revitalize his contract and give him a little bit more of an incentive to stay in Indianapolis?
Yeah, definitely, props to Philip Rivers, getting that opportunity. Hey, if you're just sitting around the crib, grandfathers you mentioned, when the NFL calls the Colts, giving you a golden opportunity like that is a tough thing for just about anybody to turn down. Let's just call for what it is. I know he's 44, but you know what? Props to him for just getting that opportunity. And shame on Cam Newton for taking digs at him. Hey, they wanted Philip Rivers to be the quarterback. That's just the bottom line. They wanted him. Having said that, I do think this is a chance where you do go all in with Daniel Jones because they did play well with him. You see his value. If he does go down, the ship kind of sinks pretty quickly. They were playing well, as you mentioned.
Yep.
Sometimes you appreciate people more when they're gone. Unfortunately, that goes in life. People appreciate you more sometimes when you say sayonara and you're not in the game anymore. That's you kind of wish people would appreciate you while you're in it, not when you're out of it. But Daniel Jones, you go all in. He's got years. Go out there and give him something so he'll be happy. So he'll be your guy.
Look, Cam Newton's just hating, okay? He's just a hater because he doesn't have an opportunity. There are people calling for Colin Kaepernick to come back into the –
Yeah, no.
Let's just stop. Just stop.
Exactly.
Stop.
Both of them stopped. And Cam Newton was just at least Colin Kaepernick wasn't being a hater. His name was thrown out there, but he wasn't being a hater. Cam Newton was just being a hater. They didn't want you to be the quarterback. They wanted Philip Rivers. That's it. Sometimes when a job is available, the people who are hiring already know who they want to put in the position. It's just a matter of that person saying yes or no.
Correct. Not only that, but you build familiarity as much as, we call this a cliche. This is because Philip Rivers has already played in the system. He's familiar with Steichen. He was able to help navigate. I mean, heck, the guys that are still in the offensive line played there when he was the starting quarterback for the Colts before. So it's not like his unfamiliar, uncharted territory for him. I mean, heck, I'm 52. If they would have called me with zero NFL experience and said, hey, we want you to be our starting quarterback, I would have said, sure, why not? Yeah, an opportunity. You don't know
exactly.
what
I would have too. I was like, hey, let me go grab my pads. Let me go get in there. I would have ran in there. I mean, you're not doing anything around the crib. You're chilling with the family, which is fine. But that those type of opportunities don't come around all the time.
Right, exactly. It's holiday season. He wants to hang around with his family and his grandchildren. What does he have, like 7 kids or 10 kids or something like that? I mean,
he would. Yeah.
he went away in the most silent methods. He really did. Now, Uncle Phil, as some people want to, he's more like Grandpa Phil, at least from my perspective. He started under center because their opponents who are playing really good ball right now are the 49ers at 10-4, Jaguars at 10-4, and the Texans at 9-5. They're all playing football, and they're playing football better than the Colts. So this does not surprise me to get a guy who is otherwise on his rocking chair smoking a pipe with his grandchild on his knee, wanting to get back into the NFL. I mean, it's like a storybook, type of feel. So why not? Why not? Why not be a part of an organization that was, treated you so well? You were there for a minute and all of a sudden you're gone, all because you thought it was it. You thought it was time to hang up the cleats. Oh, man. Speaking of the opposite spectrum of this, we're going to talk about what's good and what's bad. And I'm going to start this off momentarily, but I want to give a shout out to Diamonds Casino, so diamondsreno.com. Go check it out. This is a very small casino with a lot of packed punch. I have winners that won $12,000 just a week or so ago. So you can win here. Just sign up, be a part of it. We have, all the locals that come in. We have the Blue Collar Diner. We have the Roper Bar. There's Trade Winds bar as well. You play, you get drinks. I mean, even if you don't win, you still get drinks. So either way, you still get drinks, and it's a great environment. People come down and enjoy, and maybe you can be that big, huge winner. You can always follow at Diamonds Casino on X, rather. You go to diamondscasinoreno.com. Let's talk about the Denver Broncos. The Broncos. Oh, my gosh. These guys are this is a team that is settling into their quarterback. When I say settling, I mean I look at Bo Nix, second-year quarterback, who's amassed accolades from a guy who's already won one. He knows a little bit about it, just saying. Worked with a guy by the name of Drew Brees. Does that sound familiar? We were talking about the Saints earlier. That's Sean Payton. And when I look at the New Orleans Saints organization, man, do they miss Sean Payton? I wish they probably had him back now. Probably not. They're settled in with their head coach. They've already made that decision. However, when I look at Bo Nix, he's essentially the face of today's NFL quarterbacks. And I say that because the days of the pocket passer, the days of, the guy being in the pocket, the days of guys like Tom Brady, who sit under center and, has great protection and so on and so forth. That's great for those quarterbacks. But Bo Nix is not that guy. He's the face of today's NFL quarterback style. Guarantee you're going to go into the 2026 NFL draft and you're going to get guys who does things just like Bo Nix has done all season long, now headed in the postseason and could be the number one seed in the AFC. That's insane. Nobody thought this would ever happen. And here's why it did happen. You could throw all the stats out of the window because of his innate ability to facilitate getting the ball down the field while being accurate. When pocket pressure breaks down, this is a guy you want under center. So far, that's what's good. And it's good for the NFL. It's good for the league. And it's good for the Broncos, not to mention Bo Nix, obviously. But when you look at what that translated from leading his Oregon Ducks to a Pac-12 title, that's what continued in his respective position. It continues the overall effort and the emphasis that this Broncos team is playing with. Now, with that being said, if you're an NFL head coach, what do? You play to the strengths of your players. If you know Bo Nix and you've coached him for 1 year, what are you going to do to attribute to better opportunities for him to get the ball down, to matriculate it, get down the field? Who are you going to hand the ball off to? What do these screens look like? It's hard to say, but I know this much. They're doing it with everybody. They're getting the ball to everybody. Behind the line of scrimmage, they're getting it to him in the open field. You have rookies that are shining. Why? Because Bo Nix is getting the ball to them. That's the bottom line. It's the model moving forward of how the game will ultimately be. The draftees will be measured by who? Bo Nix, or quarterbacks like Bo Nix, maybe a Slock. Maybe, a Hall of Famer that's still playing in Aaron Rodgers for the Steelers. Look, the Denver Broncos will be facing off against kind of a flash in the pan team. And I know this is kind of in your neck of the woods, Alan. The Jaguars, who at times look a little, I don't know, sleepy. Maybe they need a double shot of cappuccino or something, but woke up from a long winter's nap defensively. While I still believe Trevor Lawrence is overpaid. Yes, boo on me. But he is. This team is lofty. It was good for him and an inflated contract, obviously, justify why he should be QB1 in Duval County. Do you believe in the Denver Broncos? Do you believe in Bo Nix and or Sean Payton's ability to get Bo Nix to become the type of quarterback that he wants him to be and what the fans obviously expect from the Denver Broncos to be? And third question, do they get the number one seed in the AFC?
And in short, yes, I definitely think, yeah, Bo Nix has come along dramatically, and Denver Broncos are an exciting team. That is something that you haven't had and said in the same sentence in a long time. They've come along both offensively and defensively. That team is defense is just stellar. And that's scary because if they can keep up that type of momentum, that defensive pressure on both sides of the ball at the line of scrimmage, as well as pass defense, they're going to be a hard out. And with Bo Nix making right plays, right decisions, you got to give Sean Payton a lot of credit. The guy's a phenomenal, phenomenal coach. He's starting to come into fruition. And when you see a quarterback buy into his system, you see the
Yep.
results. And that's the thing. Props to the Denver Broncos, both Sean Payton and Bo Nix, the defense. They're doing outstanding. And yes, I do think if they finish off the season strong, they can seize that number one speed, and they are deserving of it as well.
No doubt about that one. Alan, I look at the last great quarterback for Super Bowl 50, and that was it, Peyton Manning, who was at the end of his career, self-admittedly, great guy in Peyton Manning. Met him by some act of God at the ESPN ESPY Awards, which is fabulous. And when I think of a guy who's led their team, not only just one team, but two teams in the aforementioned Indianapolis Colts, I look at this Denver Broncos team, and I don't know that they can do no wrong in regards to their scheme, their play calling, and because the execution is going to be there. Sean Payton will ensure that he's going to execute and make sure that he gets the right guys in the right position to do the right things, and that's part of the execution process. That's what he's going to bring, and that's what he's going to do. I also agree and believe that the Denver Broncos will end up being the number one seed moving forward into the NFL playoffs. Last but not least, what's bad in the NFL, you say? What's bad? What's gnarly? What's ill in the NFL? Well, Troy Aikman stated not much for taunting the league, which I think is a very minimalistic approach. Why? Because players have been called for a lot less. If you remember, players standing over others, whether they said anything or not saying anything, it's kind of irrelevant. I think the fact alone that they were standing there in position over other players is more of a statement without actually having to say anything at all. And so I didn't see a penalty necessarily, unless you just want to call standing over a guy a penalty. I guess so. I don't know. I think that's a bad call. Did it deserve a taunting penalty? No, I don't. I no. Look, the Steelers are my team, but I didn't see anything to me that would warrant being taunting. Anyway, rules analyst Russell York said the official's decision was a point of clarification and emphasis. What was? What was the point of clarification? The fact that he standing over another player? Is this bad for the league? Is this good for the league? Or is this nothing burger and cheese hold the onions?
You know, as much I love the NFL, a lot of things they do right. I have to agree with Troy Aikman on this one. They have the abbreviation, the NFL, not for long league and no fun league. That's what it is. It's the no fun league. And if you stand over a player too long, yes, you're going to get a taunting penalty, even if it's something that maybe you're not trying to taunt someone, you're just kind of standing over them and maybe not moving fast enough. The league is going to interpret it as taunting. They're going to throw the flag almost all the time. You hate to get those type of penalties when it really matters, but that's what the league is now. They don't want any taunting. They don't want some of the celebrations that they feel are over the top, and they're going to either fine you or penalize you or both. So it is ticky-tacky. I agree with Troy Aikman, but this unfortunately is why they have that nickname, the No Fun League.
And that is what's bad in the NFL. Let's move quickly through the NBA, which I haven't come up with an acronym for NBA yet, but I will eventually. You can bet your bottom dollar on it. Commissioner Adam Silver acknowledged that there is a lot of issues going on with Miami guard Terry Rozier and Portland coach Chauncey Billups, among others, in an NBA gambling sting, ultimately, that had investigations and legal proceedings that will be partaked, only because, well, it's illegal. You can't gamble in the NBA, period. Could the NBA consider receiving some type of compensation and or make some money back from Rozier being basically in kind of a no status mode? Um, you know, salary cap implications. Look, Adam Silver's never known to be an absolutionist because he doesn't make any promises that he's not willing to keep. So he's better off saying nothing about nothing, other than the fact that this is an ongoing federal investigation of wire fraud, money laundering, conspiracy, accused of helping friends play successful bets based on inside knowledge, which is horrible. He pleaded not guilty, $3 million, and his next court appearance is scheduled for March. Now, with that being said, does the NBA give Miami any type of relief from this Terry Rozier, Chauncey Billups situation to maybe, I don't know, help minimize the financial impact and burden they're facing?
That's a great question, Rudy. I definitely think if you're Miami, you try to stay distant away from this because a federal investigation, you don't know how it's going to play itself out. Just like Adam Silver, you don't want to kind of lean one side. I trust him and I'm gonna support him when you don't know all the facts because you can end up getting burnt and you could also not only waste your money but make a fool of yourself. So I think you don't help out right now. You kind of have to let the legal process go through itself. I
Correct.
definitely do think the perception of this is not good, the look, and this is something that the players should not be involved in. You know, you make enough money, save your money. You don't need to gamble. At least
Correct.
if you want to gamble, go to Diamonds Casino. Go to see my guy Rudy.
That's it.
Do the right
Take
type
care
of
of you.
gambling. Don't do this type of gambling because this type
that
of
that
gambling will get you in federal prison and a lot worse.
A lot worse. A lot worse. Speaking of things that aren't worth imprisoning someone over, Munetaka Murakami in Major League Baseball, and his market could benefit both New York teams. And I say that because both teams had very disappointing 2025 seasons. They looked great early on down the stretch. They've failed miserably in a variety of ways. They want to reinforce the rosters. Of course, what team doesn't want to reinforce their rosters? This is the offseason to do it in, so why not take advantage of it? The Mets recently lost Pete Alonso to the Orioles. Yankees possibly moving on from Paul Goldschmidt. And I think that both teams, because look, Japanese players outside of the aforementioned Dodgers slugger, who's like the greatest Japanese player to ever play in Major League Baseball, in my opinion only, just won another World Series title with the LA Dodgers. Everybody should know who that is already, so I'm not going to mention his name. But I say this: that in Japan, he's averaged .286. That's his average. .392 on base percentage, slugger of 6.659, 24 home runs in just 69 games. So that is very, very solid for him. Now here comes the December 22nd signing deadline, which could find him on either one of those teams. And I think to myself, man, both these teams need this guy. It's going to be a New York battle to see who does it. Guys like Ken Rosenthal argue that, Shohei Ohtani, the aforementioned, MVP and two-time winner with the Dodgers, couldn't get it done with the Angels because, well, the Angels organization needs serious help, and they still do. But Ohtani's profile should not have other teams trying to get Murakami at some type of bargained price. I think because of the ongoing situation between both these teams, I think when you look at the market for both New York teams, New York is a huge draw, regardless of what team you play for, whether it's the Mets or the Yankees. And I think to myself, could this be a Murakami move? And both teams are going to try to take a literal swing at him to get him on either one of those teams. What do you think? Yankees or Mets?
I think it's a great landing spot for either one of those two teams. I do think they should really make a push to get Murakami because when you could get talent from Japan, as we've seen there, Ichiro, as you mentioned, Shohei Ohtani, there's something to be said. And those players now they have a pathway, meaning they have players here from Japan that they could talk to, they could kind of get some information from, and I think the learning curve is a lot shorter. So I definitely think either one of those two spots, they should make a play for it. Those two teams are better than the Angels. They will, Murakami would start in a very good spot in a team where just another push or two, they're right there. The Yankees could use another player or two, and so could the Mets with Pete Alonso now being an Oreo. I definitely do think they should both make a play, may the best man win.
I think the best team win. And I say that because when you look at the Mets season, when you look at the Yankee season, they both fell short in a variety of ways, whether it was, the RBIs, whether it was home runs, whether it was defense on the infield. They both basically screwed the pooch in both aspects, meaning that they weren't able to overcome those types of adversities in the long run, which ultimately led to their demise heading into the latter part of the 2025 postseason. Alan, it has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for coming on. We're going to do this every Thursday until we go live, which will be January 17th at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, right here on the Diamond Stage at diamondscasinoreno.com. I have the banner behind me. You probably can't see it, but trust me, it's going to be worth it. Tune in, like it, love it, share it. I appreciate it. I appreciate everyone for watching. I thank you. And Alan, where can everybody reach you, contact you, get in touch with you, and just learn a lot from you?
Thank you. It's always a pleasure to be here joining you, Rudy, Reyes, and definitely we have a big time on Let's Talk Sports going forward on 11 a.m. You can reach me. Just type in Alan Alford right there, ALAN ALFORD, on all social media platforms, or Alan Alford sportstalkshow.com, and you can get connected with me. Definitely would love to hear from you. We're going to do big things. We're going to make sure you guys are always entertained.
Absolutely. And entertainment is what we bring, and that's why I'm here at diamondscasinoreno.com. Diamonds, 1010 East 6th Street, cross Sutro in Reno, Nevada, near downtown. So thank you all for joining in. We appreciate it. We're going to share this on all our platforms, my platform included in that. And throw me a follow at Rude Dog Reyes. Go to the rudedogshow.com. Yes, that podcast is still going. Thank you, Mickey, for chiming in. We appreciate you. We appreciate every time you tune in. So keep on tuning in. Keep on liking and loving and sharing. We appreciate you guys. And if we didn't mention it before, Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. We'll see you next Thursday at same time, 12 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time. For me and Alan Alford, I wish you a very Merry Christmas, and we will see you guys real soon.